Hello and welcome once again to the Smart Money, Dumb Money Show. And I am your host, Keith Richards, as usual. And I am a technical analyst and president of Value Trend Wealth Management. Today, we're going to talk about Bitcoin. Now, I'm not an expert in Bitcoin, so if you ever go down that rabbit hole too much with me, I will lose, or you will lose me, I should say. But I do know how to read charts, and what I wanted to do was kind of carry on from a theme of a number of points that I put on a recent blog that I think is one of the more important points that I have made, or at least one of the more important blogs that I have made recently. And it's called What You Need to Know. So if you go to the valuetrend.ca website, you will see a space for our blogs, and you'll see a blog entitled What You Need to Know. And really what that blog was about was a number of talking points that I took out of a very interesting meeting with some top dog managers and financial analysts. It was just a very special occasion. And I tried to summarize some of the generic themes that were talked about at the meeting. This was both by the host, Larry McDonald, who some of you may know is the president of Bear Traps, but he also has written a number of books, including his most recent book, How to Listen When Markets Speak. Now, the Bitcoin talk was, I think, part of a banter that came out of a general discussion that Larry had with the group. And a couple of the portfolio managers were talking about with the rising volatility on world currencies. And we sort of saw something like this in Japan just a few weeks ago. Why Bitcoin and gold are going to become in the future more important. So I thought instead of looking, 5 years or 10 years down the road, I thought I'd just look at sort of a more up-to-date picture of Bitcoin and just take what we can out of it. But ultimately, when people look at Bitcoin, some of them look at it as speculation on investing in something with a high degree of risk. And some of investors are looking at it as kind of a hedge against a potential decline in the US dollar. And I think that goes probably against many currencies, as was noted in that meeting. So I'm going to just share a screen, and I'm going to go right to the US dollar chart. And what you'll notice here is that the US dollar, this is a 5-year chart, and all the charts I'm going to show you are going to be 5 years. And what you'll notice is that the US dollar has been kind of trapped between, call it 100 bucks. I mean, this is showing 101, but let's call it $100 to roughly 106, 107. Okay. And it bounces up and down pretty regularly in that range. It's at the bottom of that range right now, which could indicate that it's ripe to start moving back up again on a basket of world currencies. So this is measuring the US dollar against a basket of world currencies, not against any one particular currency, such as the Canadian dollar, which most of my viewers are. So that's maybe good for the US dollar, but if it does break down, as you guys know, whenever you get a base like this and a breakdown occurs, that can be very bad news, because then you'd have to target way down here somewhere. So let's just take a look at, all right, if the US dollar has been sideways, how does that interact with Bitcoin? So this is Bitcoin against the US dollar. And as you can see, Bitcoin is a kind of a crazy looking chart. And this is the relationship of Bitcoin against the US dollar. So it's Bitcoin to the US dollar. How's it done? It's not Bitcoin by itself, which is around $30,000 right now. It's Bitcoin to the US dollar, how it's performed. And you can see that it's been a series of steps lately. And actually, it's been kind of interesting because Bitcoin has been following its 200-day moving average, though lately it looks like it's broken it, but it's moved in a couple of consolidations and possibly is basing in that relationship. Remember, this is not price of Bitcoin. This is price of Bitcoin against the US dollar, right? But what this is telling us is that recently Bitcoin, when the US dollar was pulling back down, it does look like it rose, although it eventually pulled back down to a bit of a support level. Still, net since 23, if we go back to the Bitcoin, or sorry, the US dollar, you can see 23 US dollar has been sideways. If we go to Bitcoin against the US dollar since 23, the relationship, generally speaking, very, very choppy action, but still Bitcoin's outperformed the US dollar. Okay, so maybe that's where we start to think of Bitcoin as a hedge against the US dollar, a very choppy hedge, mind you, but so far it's proven that it has outperformed on a relative basis the US dollar. So that's probably where part of that talk out of the meeting I attended came from. So just final chart here, and this is going to be a relatively short video, but the final chart is the actual price of Bitcoin itself, just as a trading vehicle. What's it worth? Well, it's around 30,000 bucks. And what's really interesting here is that you can see where I've put my crosshairs, and that's at that $30,000 level, which was a support level going way back here into 2020. It found support around the $30. It had risen off of that, but multiple times came down to that same point over and over 30,000, and then it fell and it went down to at one point around 16,000, as you can see. But where is it finding resistance? At around $30,000 again. Okay, so typical technical analysis strategy involves looking at these types of formations, which in this case would be some sort of a base formation, acknowledging the neckline and noting that there's an awful lot of resistance now at 30,000, but if it breaks to the upside, and there is absolutely no predictions here on that, but if it breaks to the upside, then you would probably see a double on Bitcoin. Now, again, I'm going to flip you right back to that US dollar chart. You saw that Bitcoin had been moving generally up since 2023 when the US market was moving sideways. Well, the chances are that the US dollar will catch a bid and start to move up that, from 101 or whatever it is right now to 106. That's a fairly good move, 5 cents on the world basket of currencies. So in that case, if we go back to the Bitcoin chart, that may hold the Bitcoin itself from breaking out. We shall see. And you know that you've probably, many of you watching this video have followed my work. And I like to quote Howard Marks when he says, "You don't predict, you do prepare." So I'm not going to predict that Bitcoin will or will not break the $30,000 level, which it seems to be stuck somewhere near. But if it does, then that may be a defiance of the past pattern since 23, where it outperformed the US dollar. If it does have a relationship to the US dollar as, say, a hedge, then you may see Bitcoin underperform or at least fail at around this $31,000 level. That's to be seen, but if it did break out, it would be a sign that maybe that hedge relationship is over. So just food for thought. I thought I'd share my thoughts on Bitcoin, which really, as an investor, I would say it's at a point that one would probably not want to buy, because it could just turn around at this neckline and pull back quite a bit, plus the fact that the US dollar is at the bottom of trading range. And if there is still a relationship there between Bitcoin and the US dollar, then that would not lead to a likely breakout on Bitcoin. But whatever the case, I thought you would be interested in hearing my 2 cents worth on Bitcoin, for whatever that's worth, in my lack of knowledge on how Bitcoin is even created and all that stuff. It's one of those fundamental things that I'm fairly clueless at. But as I said, I know a chart when I see one, and I know how to read them. So that's my technical view on Bitcoin. And I do think that it's probably something, even if you understand more about Bitcoin than I do, I think it's probably something you should consider if you're considering buying or trading Bitcoin in the coming months and year. Thanks for watching. We'll be back next week.